and welcome to the RA Q&A session. My name is Haley Bernard Handel, and I'm the coordinator for selection and leadership.
And my name is Tara Hess, and I am the graduate coordinator for selection and leadership.
We're so excited to be with you all today to answer any questions you may have about the resident assistant position or the process to become a resident assistant. As our application is open now, you can find the application at ucf.ereslife.com. But at any point today during this next about hour that we have with you all, you can just post your questions into the comments and we'll be able to answer them directly live here, and that can be on Facebook or YouTube, whichever way you're watching right now. We'll be able to answer any questions that you have live. So feel free to start putting them in the chat. We're going to start with some frequently asked questions that we have. So again, this is for the resident assistant position for 2023-2024. We have a very big process, so we do start this application process pretty early on, about a whole year in advance before you would actually start the position. We do have a couple positions that we're going to fill starting this January, just to select 10 to 15 that we'll hire from this pool as well. But for the most part, this pool will consist of individuals starting in May of 2023 and August of 2023. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. But for now, we're going to get started with some of our frequently asked questions.
All right, yeah, I'll get us started. So what are the main responsibilities of an RA? So there are RAs across all of our UCF communities. The responsibilities pretty much stay the same across the communities. So that can include your duty rotation, so sitting behind the desk after 5 p.m. and then being on call up until 8 a.m. the next day. We have 24-hour weekend shifts for duty. We can talk a little bit more about duty if we have further questions. Responsibilities also include, making your hall or floor or even building a community, so fostering that community by having conversations with your residents, having community meetings, community building, so having events. Maybe you're doing a game night or a movie night or speed friending, those kind of things. There's a lot of different things going on because you can also go to other floors events if you're ever wanting to, and then also the communities are hosting events throughout the year as well. Other responsibilities include writing incident reports. So say you come across an incident while you're on duty, you're filling out an incident report in a pretty formal way, something that we train our RAs on. You are submitting work order requests. So a resident calls in, as much as we try and encourage our residents to fill out their own work orders, sometimes there are things that, like their AC is completely down, they're leaving their space, like it's really warm in there, those kind of things. You're able to either contact our emergency maintenance line and or submit that work order to get those kind of things fixed. To name a few. Can you think of any additional things?
Yeah, I think that really covered it. Something to keep in mind is we do a lot of training for our RA positions. We train them multiple times throughout the year, whether they're new or a returner. So all those things that Tanner's mentioning, even if some may sound confusing or maybe you haven't heard of them before, as an RA, we do train you on those things. So we don't expect you to know all of them. But Tanner did a really great job of giving a good overview snapshot of what the position looks like. And so hearing the responsibilities for the position, you may ask, what are some of the, what is the compensation for the RA position? Included in the RA position, you will get to live on campus without paying anything for your room. You'll get an on-campus room assignment, and it's included in the stipend for the RA position. So you don't have to pay anything out of pocket to be living on campus, as that is a job requirement. You also, on top of that, will get a bi-weekly stipend, anywhere between $150 to $250. It again depends on what community you're living in. So your community that you're assigned to does affect your pay, as different communities have different costs associated with them. So we try to balance it out as the more expensive communities versus maybe some of the lesser expensive communities. Hello, Maya. Thanks for joining. All right. The next question, what is the timeline for the RA selection process? So I know that application is open now. Tanner, tell us the timeline.
Of course. So our application is now open. You can find it in this little box over here. As I mentioned earlier, ucf.ureslife.com. The application closes October 1st at 11:59 p.m. Once your application is closed and submitted, your references, 2 of them, will be notified at that time. So submit your application early, give your reference a little bit more time, but your reference will, if you do submit it at 11:59, 11:58 on October 1st, we'll have until 11:59 on October 2nd to complete the references. In order for your application to be completed and submitted and done and be part of our process, both of those references do need to be in. That's why we stress turning it in, giving your references some time. I'm gonna look over to the side here real quickly. Our first process will include for spring hires. So we will notify you on November 29th whether you are getting hired or not for the spring. You will have until December 1st at 11:59 p.m. to accept or decline that offer on ucf.ureslife.com. You will then have the next couple of weeks, the next week, by December 8th at 5 p.m. to complete your HR process with our HR department. You will then be notified if you aren't hired for spring hire dates on December 8th if we will be moving forward with you. So you will either get unfortunately, we will not be moving forward with you. You will not be hired into the RA position, or you will get we are moving you to the candidate waiting area summer process on December 8th. That candidate waiting area is really like a waiting room at a doctor's office. You've done everything you need to do. You have filled out your paperwork. You've completed your application, interview, all of those kind of things. We do not have a current vacancy for you, but we would like to keep you moving forward to see if you are viable for a spring vacancy. Or a summer vacancy, so sorry. Moving into our summer vacancies, so our summer hire process, you will be notified on February 13th, 2023 as to whether or not you will be hired into a position, not hired into a position, and or for people who are not necessarily not getting hired into a position, but are also not filling a May 23 to May 24 contract vacancy, we will be putting you in an alternate pool. And so that will be an offer that is something that you also do need to accept or decline. So on that day, you will accept or decline on February 15th, whether you are accepting a position or accepting a position into the alternate pool. And that alternate pool, similar to that candidate waiting area, we can't guarantee that you will get a job from that pool, but you are that list. You are the list that anyone we hire in February, anyone between February and November of that same year. So all of our fall vacancies will come from that alternate pool. We do pull from that pool very, very often. So moving forward from that pool is active until November 23rd. As we mentioned, if you are getting hired on February 13th for one of our May 2023 to May 2024 contract year positions, you will have till February 15th to accept or decline that position. And then if you are accepting, you will have until March 17th to work through our HR process, which is pretty extensive.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Tanner. Another good question is, how does duty work? So Tanner mentioned one of the main responsibilities that an RA has is working on duty. So we have 2 different types of duty. There's weekday duty and weekend duty. Weekday duty goes from Sunday to Thursday, so the evenings before a weekday. And then weekend duty is Friday through Sunday. So weekday duty, you will come to the office at 4:45, and you'll sit in the office with either one other duty partner or maybe a couple duty partners, just depending on your schedule. And you will stay in the office until 8 p.m. Between your group of those working on duty, one of you all will take the phone with you back to your room at 8 p.m. and then you get to just hang out in your room for the rest of the evening up until 8 a.m. the next morning when you come and you return the phone. So between the group of you, you just would rotate on who actually takes the phone with you. And then should there be, any sort of calls, lockouts, or anything throughout the night, you would be the individual that they would call. You always bring a partner with you, so you would then call the second person on call and you would both respond together. But again, you would rotate it out on who would get that first call and things like that. That is weekday duty, where you return the phone at 8 a.m. the next morning, because we'll have staff in our office who can then hold the phone and carry out any administrative work that needs to be done over the regular 8 to 5 day. There's then a weekend duty. Very similar to weekday duty, you still get here at 4:45, but you take the phone and you just go back to your room. So you can just hang out in your room until 4:45 the next day. So instead of returning at 8 a.m., you would bring the phone back at 4:45 the next day in case there are any calls within that 24-hour period. It's the same exact thing of within your group that you're on duty with, you would all take turns on who is the person who actually takes the phone with them to the room. Many people often ask, how many times am I going to be on duty per semester? That is dependent on the community. Some communities, you have a weekday duty shift once a week throughout the whole semester, and then you might do 4 or 5 weekend duty shifts throughout the whole semester, and the weekend duty shift would just be one 24 hours. So either a Friday at 4:45 to Saturday at 4:45, that's one. Saturday, at 4:45 to Sunday at 4:45 is a totally separate weekend duty. So you may have a couple weekend duties, you will have a couple weekend duties throughout the semester. And then other communities just divide it up pretty equally. So you wouldn't have a consistent, I'm on duty every Tuesday, but you're going to work this Tuesday of this week. You're going to then 3 weeks later work this Wednesday. The next week work the Thursday, so on and so forth. And then same thing, they divide the weekend duties. So it just depends on what community you're in and how many staff members they have to divide out all of the weekend or all of the duty shifts with. But what is really important is you get to pick your duty shift. You do have to all come together and make agreements on different things, but you do have a say in what duty shifts you take. So if you are a marching knight and you have band practice every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and so you would only be able to work duty on Tuesday, Thursday, and then Saturday weekend duty shifts, that's okay, and you can have a say in picking what duty shifts you take. And we just try to work around school responsibilities first, making sure, like, if you have a night class on any day of the week, you never work duty on those days and you don't have staff meetings on those days. So we try to be pretty flexible.
Something to add for duty is that while you are going to be sitting in the office, and some of you may be familiar of what that looks like when you are going to the office and getting the RA's support or the office assistant who's there, lockouts, letting into the kitchen, renting out equipment, those kind of things. An additional responsibility to that is our rounds. So RAs will be responsible throughout their shifts to complete rounds in the community, which means going with your duty partner and basically walking every floor of every building in your community. This ensures, the safety of your community. You're checking in on floors. If you're sitting in the office, you're not exactly sure what's going on the third floor of building 102. So this gives you that opportunity to just kind of check base with your community, report any work orders. Say you walk into a floor and the light at the end of the hall is out, or you notice that one of the doors isn't locking properly, and for the safety of the community, you're able to then relay that up to work control and get those things fixed pretty quickly.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, you want to take this one?
Mm-hmm. When you apply for an RA, do you pick which community you want to be an RA? So you don't get to pick your community. When you apply, you do get to pick a preference of community. So what that's going to look like on your application is you're going to pick whether you would like to be considered for a academic village community first. So that would be Nike, Neptune, and Hercules. Say you want to be picked for a main campus position first. That would be Apollo, Libra, and Lake Claire, or Towers first, Towers 1, 2, 3, and 4, or Northview, or Rosen. So those are the preferences that you get to list on your application. We do take that into great consideration because there's usually a reason why you are selecting those communities, whether that is I lived there my freshman year or like my first time in college year, I had a great experience, my RA was really welcoming, I want to create that for future residents, and I have that reference of like, oh, I've lived in that community, I have a good understanding of what that community looks like, I was really close with my RA and they explained a lot of like parts of this community. So those kind of things are we're going to take into like big consideration in the application and interview and selection process. That being said, when you're applying to be an RA, you're applying to be an RA in any community. You are going to be offered a position or not, and when you're offered a position, that is going to be tied to a community, but you are accepting or declining whether you want the RA position. So if you're going in and you get offered a position in a certain community, say, congratulations, you've been offered a resident assistant position. Your community assignment is the Nike community. Unfortunately, you are not able to kind of negotiate your community. You have been hand selected by that coordinator of that community, just like all the other RA positions have been selected by that coordinator of the community. So keep that in mind when you're putting down your references. That being said, when it comes to our Rosen community, that one is going to be something we ask a couple times throughout our process, because our Rosen community is about 30 minutes away from main campus, is sometimes a really great opportunity if you are at the Rosen College and you take classes there, and that is somewhere you're at often. Maybe you have an internship at Universal or Disney and you want to be closer. So listing that on your application, we are going to consider you for those positions if you are listing Rosen. That's the only community that we kind of treat that way, because it is off campus and further away. So when you're going into your application, don't select it because you think it'll give you a better chance of getting selected for a main campus position. If you're selecting it, we're going to consider you for Rosen. And if you're getting offered a position at Rosen, it's that same kind of thing. Unfortunately, we can't really negotiate about community placement once we get offers out. So.
Yeah, I think what Tanner mentioned, that every RA is picked in their community for a reason, is something to really highlight on. We don't just automatically kind of go down the line and say, okay, top candidate here, next top candidate here, so on and so forth. We do obviously take scores into a very, very high priority, but we also look at the fit for the different staff. So you'll see on your application, you have different questions that are like work now, play later. I like either consistency, or I like change, or you'll see a bunch of different this or that options. We don't score them. We don't put a numerical value on your opinions and things like that, but we do take those into consideration when we pair teams together, because it's not really beneficial to have an entire team that's work now, play later, because then you may just all be focused on work too much, and it's just gonna be go go go. And on the other side, you don't really want everyone on the team having a play now, work later mentality, because then nothing will ever get done. So we try to make sure to really balance the type of individuals we have on our staff, and we pick everyone for the different communities for a reason. And just as a reminder, you can put a comment either onto this Facebook post or on this YouTube video anytime you want, and we will be able to answer it live. We are answering some frequently asked questions right now, but if you have any questions that pop up, you're more than welcome just to put it in the comments and we'll be able to answer it for you. All right, so the next question is it difficult to manage being an RA and a full-time student? I think that having any job while being a full-time student can be difficult, and the RA position is no different if you aren't very particular with your time management skills. The RA position has a lot of benefits with it, where your job is right by where you're going to be working, so you don't have a very long commute. It's not going to take a lot of time out of your day to go to and from your work location. When you're on duty, from like that 4:45 to 8 p.m. and you're in the office, you're allowed to, work on different homework assignments, or you're allowed to study, you're allowed to make your flashcards, you're allowed to do other RA administrative work. Maybe you're working on your door decks, or you're finishing some notes on a work order or something like that. You're allowed to work on things while you're on duty. That's going to make your RA job easier and your school life a little bit easier. So I think just making sure that you use that time wisely. If you're on duty, don't take a timed test where if you get a call and you have to respond and give someone a lockout, or there's any type of emergency and you have to stop what you're doing and go and respond and assist. It's not going to be great if you have 15 minutes left on your test and still have 20 questions. So just keeping in mind, making sure you time manage correctly and you don't leave a test or a project to the last minute on the night that you have duty where you're really, really busy or something. But beyond that, I think the RA gives a lot of benefits in being able to give you time to work on some of your projects, assignments, and other RA responsibilities. So I definitely think that it is pretty manageable. Want to take that one?
We just did this one.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I clicked on the wrong one. I meant this one. Do you want to do this one?
Sure. Does each floor have a different RA like Neptune? So as this commonly, I'm sure we got this question before and copied it over. Like Neptune and most communities, with the exception of our Lake Claire community, kind of towers. I'll kind of go in a little bit of depth of that. So the majority of the communities, you are going to have a floor that is assigned to you. You will live on that floor, and that will be your residence. And so, you're having those conversations with them, you're doing community meetings with them, you're having events with them, all that kind of stuff. That would be your floor. That is true for Nike, Hercules, Neptune, Libra, Apollo. Lake Claire is a little different because our Lake Claire buildings are tall and have a small amount of residents on each floor. You are responsible for the entire building. So that would be like, I'm responsible for building 65 and I live on the second floor, and all of these residents I will be overseeing throughout the year, having meetings, buildings, community builders, all that kind of stuff. For towers and Northview, it's a little different because those are a lot of floors. As you may have seen those buildings, they are a little bit taller. And then each floor has a lot of residents on them because each space has 4 residents in them. They are apartment style. Those buildings are divided into floors, so each floor has like 2 RAs. So one RA has one side of the floor, and the other RA has the other side of the floor, and same with Northview. So yeah, I think that answers that question.
Yeah, we have a comment from Facebook. Patrick asks, is there a salary on top of the paid for room and board? There is. We call it a stipend because it is dependent on what community you're assigned to work and live in. So we have an overall amount that every RA is allocated, and then we subtract the cost of your housing assignment. We take what's left and we divide it to be a biweekly paycheck. So you will get a biweekly paycheck and have your living taken care of by having the RA position. Right now, this year, the 2022-2023 RAs, their biweekly state paychecks range between $155 to I think $230. So that's kind of the range that all of our RAs are getting paid. And again, it depends on which community you're working in. There are some communities that cost a little bit more and some communities that cost a little bit less, and we supplement that with how much you get paid per week. Thank you. That's a great question. Terry, you want to talk about this one?
Sure. Can I apply to be an RA when I begin school in the spring? So this is a great question. A lot of people don't maybe consider it because, they haven't started school yet. They're starting in the spring. Yes, you can. There are some requirements that you have to make sure that you reach. That would be having 12 credit hours completed at UCF by the start of the position. If you're starting in the spring, you've applied this past fall, you can still go through our entire application process as long as you are admitted into the school. You do have to have that PID kind of thing and be ready to start school that spring. So you would go through the process the same way, apply at ucf.ereslife.com. We will have some accommodations to do virtual interviews if you are living out of state and you really do want to be an RA this upcoming May contract, but you're not in the state at the time. So for interviews, we will try and work our best with you. But that being said, I think the only requirement that you would probably need to focus on the most is having at least 12 credit hours with UCF completed, and then it would be all set to go for you.
Thank you. And the next question, what are requirements to be eligible to be an RA? And I was pulling up a little cheat sheet right next to me so I didn't forget anything. But we have a GPA requirement. You must have an overall 2.5 cumulative GPA from UCF. That's the grades we're going to pull. If you don't have a GPA right now, maybe you're a first-time college student, that's okay. On your application, you can just put 0 because we're going to pull it on our end anyway. But by the time you start the position, you need to have a 2.5. So say example, you're starting this fall, you have a rough semester and you get a 2.3, 2.4. Even though you aren't meeting that 2.5 eligibility by the end of your fall semester, if you're wanting to start in May of next year, and you can raise that GPA to be above a 2.5 by the time you start in May, then you'll still be considered. So just keep that in mind. It's a 2.5 cumulative GPA. As Tanner mentioned, we do have a credit requirement. You do have to have 24 completed credit hours, and 12 of them must be from UCF. So if you got your associates elsewhere, if you did dual enrollment and you have some extra credits, that absolutely counts. You just need 12 from UCF. So for example, like Tanner was mentioning, if you start in the spring, as long as you take 12 credit hours in the spring and you're bringing in at least 12 credits with you, you're still eligible to start in May. And then student conduct, we do a conduct check, so you must have a clear conduct record. And we also do a background check in our hire process. So you must be able to complete a background check when going through the hiring process.
All right, this next question from Zachary Larson. Do we have to be a student officially enrolled at UCF to be an RA? Yes, the RA position is a student staff position, and so being enrolled at UCF is required.
All right, and the next question, do RAs get their own room? Most RAs will get their own room. Not every single one. Some RAs will have another RA roommate, and then there are some communities where the RA actually lives in a space with other residents on the floor. But for the most part, RAs do get to get their own room.
So this next question is, what ways can I stand out as an RA applicant? I feel like this is a question that we get most often. So there are a lot of different things that you can do to stand out. Complete your application thoroughly, no typos, pay attention to the word limit, ask your references before you submit them as a reference. So your reference is going to get a reference form to fill out about you. So if you're listing your previous supervisor, but like not letting them know, they're going to get this form. Maybe they'll think it's spam. Not really sure. Maybe that it goes to their spam folder and they just move on, and they may not fill it out for you, and that would automatically mean your application isn't complete. So just a few things to just like keep cognizant. Other than that, get involved. One of the comments that we make on our application is that we do like one of your references to be part of the UCF population. We like to see that, very early that you're making connections with professors, with advisors, with faculty and staff all across our UCF campus, and that also can include your RA, or maybe you've gotten to know the office support assistant or the student office assistant down in your community's office. Those can all be your references. So get to know some people on campus, build some good relationships with them, get involved. That can be in registered student organizations, that could be in getting another job on campus, and putting your best foot forward. As we've mentioned, you do have to clear a conduct check. So read your CLG when you move in, and pay attention to all of the things that are listed in there, and treat your peers well. All those things are going to make you stand out on an RA application. And yeah, anything you can think to add?
A little shameless plug. We also advise a group of students called the Residence Hall Association, and while it is not like a streamlined pathway from being involved on your area council to being an RA, it is very beneficial, because if you're involved in the housing community through area council, through getting connected with different individuals in your community office, getting to know your coordinator, your graduate coordinator, however you're getting involved at UCF, if you're being a CA, a mail OA, an HA, any of these other positions where you
explain mail OA.
Mail services, as in the postal services, MAIL. Thank you, because I used to get really messed up with that. Like mail services, postal services, OA, working in the Department of Housing, it is great to just be involved with the department before being an RA, so that you understand more of what the RA's responsibilities are. And if right now you don't have really the opportunity to be involved in an area council or take on one of those positions, just go in and talk to your coordinator and your grad. Talk to the RA on your floor. No one's going to be able to tell you more about what an RA does than an RA themselves. So take some time and learn about the RA position. That is a way you can really, really stand out, by taking the effort and really learning firsthand what an RA does.
Yep,
Okay.
that's good.
All right, so another question is, what skills or experiences should an applicant expect to learn through being an RA? There are so many. I'd love to note that there are not many jobs you can have in the US where anywhere you go from here, people are going to know the basis of your job. If you go into an interview and you say, yeah, I was a resident assistant for 3 years at the University of Central Florida, I can tell you already that that interviewer is going to know you can respond quickly, you're good thinking on your feet and have critical thinking skills, you are a leader, and you're organized and have good time management. You didn't tell me anything else about your job, and almost everyone knows the basic responsibilities of being an RA. And there are not many jobs that you're going to walk in, say the title, and they already know multiple things about you. So I think that, one, just being able to have this as a resume booster is amazing. Through the RA position, when you have returner training, we also do resume workshops and other things to prepare you for what is next after the RA position. So that's something to look forward to too. And the points that I did make of knowing what you're going to learn through being an RA also are things that you can expect to walk away with. That is time management and organization skills. Being able to be a leader and a team player. Oftentimes you're on, larger staffs. You can have a staff between 8, or our biggest staff is 23. Mm-hmm. So we have between, staffs that are the size of 8 people, and we have staff the size of 23 people. You're going to have different people on this staff, and we really make sure that you have different people on this staff. So you are going to be able to get to know different types of people and get along with different types of people. You're going to be able to have critical thinking training, emergency response training, different things like that you can use in any position that you go forward through the RA position after this. Anything else?
No, I think you pretty much covered a lot of it.
Cool. All right. We have another question.
If I applied to the program and was hired as an RA, could I back out? Like any job, you can leave at any point. We're not going to hold you to any sort of housing contract. If you leave the position early, you're not going to owe anything for your room or anything like that. We understand, you're applying to a job, and this is a job, and sometimes people have to make difficult decisions in life and step down from positions and or explore new opportunities. I think something that comes up often too is we still want you to do those opportunities like summer abroad or semester abroad, and have those opportunities, and we're going to work with you on what that looks like for your employment.
Another question we have from Facebook is from Sophia. Is this considered a work-study job? It is not considered work-study because it is not tied to your tuition, but unlike work-study jobs, we do provide the housing, so you get to live on campus for free. So while it is not a work-study job, we do still offer more than just a paycheck, which kind of sets us apart from pretty much every other not work-study job that there is out there, and is the main reason why we cannot be a work-study job. Is because we're already providing more than just the stipend or the paycheck. Do you want to start this one?
So who do we contact with application issues and questions? So please reach out to reslifeselection@ucf.edu. We will post the image of our email at the end. And this email is monitored by us and our selection committee. You can ask questions about the application, about the job, all of those kind of questions you can direct towards that email, and we will be able to assist you there. If you're having issues with the application, definitely reach out to that email. Something that does happen commonly is that after our deadlines, we'll get the response of, oh, it wasn't letting me submit, or I tried to submit, I thought it was just going to automatically submit October 1st, and it didn't, and so my application isn't done. And so if you are having those issues, please email this email here. Let us know as soon as possible, because we are going to work with you to work those out. Unfortunately, after that application deadline does pass, we are going to have way less wiggle room, if any. So if you're having difficulties with submitting, your application will not automatically submit October 1st at 11:59 p.m. We do have a lot of incomplete applications, and so they stay incomplete unless you're hitting that submit button.
Yeah, I think it's important to note this is a very, very big process. We do get a lot of applications, and we interview and we hire a lot of people, but that just makes any sort of special circumstance pretty much impossible to work with. We have so many people that will email that if we just allowed everyone to submit who forgot to on October 1st, we would add another couple hundred onto our application numbers, and we just feasibly cannot do that. So it's important to make sure that you're checking submit before the 1st, even though the application closed on the 1st, just submit on the 28th, 29th, 30th. Like, just make sure it's in, give yourself a full 24 hours to go back and check it, make sure it's good to go. And again, like Tanner mentioned, it's really important to submit early because your references are not notified until you submit. And that's the same thing. It's even worse when a full application has been submitted by the 1st and the references are not completing, because it is a super simple form. There is only an optional short response. Everything else is a drop down click kind of scale menu. Yes. And it's really hard when we have students, emailing like, my reference didn't submit, I don't know what to do, like it's past the deadline. And there's nothing we can do at that point, because it is the student's responsibility to make sure that their reference gets the email, sees the email, responds to the form that they're sent. And it's really hard because the student obviously took the work, took the time out of their day to complete the whole application, and then one or both of their references don't respond and don't submit it.
Something to add is that you will get a notification when your reference does submit your reference for your application. So say you've submitted it a couple days out, you reached out to them, let them know that your application was done, and so you should receive an email. I recommend doing that. Sometimes it does go to the junk email, and that's just how some emails are set up. It's set up to send things to junk.
Especially Broward County School District. I know that's so specific. Broward County School District, if you use your work email, it's not getting to you. Not even in your spam, not even in your junk. Give a different email.
So when you're submitting that application, reach out to your references. You should have a good relationship with them to be able to say, hey, I've submitted my application. You should have an email now. If you're not seeing an email, please let me know so that I can reach out to this email below, and we can work out any sort of technical difficulties. It doesn't happen all that often, but it does happen, and we want to make sure that technical difficulties are not the thing stopping you from becoming an RA.
Yes, we have the ability to take the form of the reference and actually just physically email it to someone. Through the application process, it is automated, but we on the back end have the ability to just kind of ping it to them via email, and it kind of skips the whole blocking part. So if someone is really not getting it, we can go and individually email them. But don't do that unless you've exhausted all other options first, because then, once again, if we're taking the time to individually email all however many references, it's taking us away from being able to move forward in the process. Once applied, how long does it take to get a response? That's a great question. So like I mentioned, the application closes on the 1st, and all the reference forms are due at 11:59 on October 2nd. We then take about 2 weeks to review the applications, and I'm going to tell you the exact date when you will find out.
This doesn't have our notified.
Sorry, we have our little cheat sheets with all of our dates. We will end up offering interviews to candidates on Monday, October 24th. So if you're going to be offered an interview, you will be notified on the 24th, and we will start interviews the next week. So it's important to note that when sent the offer for the interview, that's actually not the 24th.
The 24th, you'll have it.
Okay. Thank you. Tanner's telling me.
I'm sorry.
So once sent the offer on the 24th, it'll actually be a way for you to sign up for your email. It'll already be pre-set up. You'll have a link to go in and click your interview time, and that is it. There's no other reminders or follow-up emails. You have selected your interview time. So you have until October 27th to select your interview time, and then interviews start that next week. So it's important to really take responsibility of your email and make sure you're watching around that time so that you don't miss the opportunity to select an interview time. We have had that before. People were offered interviews, they just didn't check their email. Those 4 days passed and we were not able to offer any more interviews. So you get notified on October 24th that you're being offered an interview, or you may be notified that you're not continuing in our process. We have interviews the next week. And then, like Tanner mentioned earlier, we have the candidate waiting area, and you're notified of that in December. That just means you weren't hired for one of the very, very few spring positions that we hire for, and you're in our candidate waiting area like a doctor's office where you have an appointment, you showed up on time, everything's good. We just are waiting to fit you in. And so then we have our RA notification for starting in either May or August. That'll be sent mid-September or mid-February, excuse me. So that is kind of that process of getting hired. In the mid-February date, you'll also be notified if you're going to be an alternate in our candidate pool as well.
Something to add too with this is, as Haley mentioned, those interviews are going to take place that next week. So that's like November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Our interviews are in person. We do make accommodations for extenuating circumstances, but that is like, I am currently living in Minnesota and I am not going to fly for this interview. Unfortunately, financially, that's not feasible. And we are going to understand that, and we are going to work with you to make sure you're still getting an interview. That being said, keep that in mind that those interviews are the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of November. Try not to plan any big trips
cruises.
That time. Yes,
unless you're taking us, and then not only do you not have to do the interview, you've got the job.
She jokes. But make sure you're keeping that in mind. I know that, life happens and things happen, and we're going to work with you and do our best. But those are the 3 days that we will be interviewing in person, and that you are responsible to be there if you are offered an interview and you are serious about this job.
Yeah. And we have another question. Tanner, you want to do this one?
Sure. Can you still be an RA if you live at Valencia or are a Valencia live at Union West and or are a Valencia student? So we've actually recently made a change with our Union West partners. We will no longer be staffing the resident assistants at Union West. The property managers who own the Union West building will now be hiring their own RAs. So if you live at Union West, reach out to Union West to apply for their RA position. It is a completely different thing, so it is not under the UCF Department of Housing and Residence Life, and that goes for the same thing with Valencia students. If you're living at Union West, I urge you to reach out to the Union West population or the Union West managers to have interest in that RA application. If you are a Union West student and living at Union West your first year, and you are willing to commute to Union West your second year, and you want to go through our RA application to get hired for a main campus or even Rosen and Union West are kind of close, you can go through that option, but at this time you do have to be a UCF student for our role.
Alrighty, and if anyone has any last minute questions or anything, go ahead and put those into your comments. And if I don't see anything within the next couple of seconds, we're going to go ahead and sign off. So I want to give one more reminder that you can apply now at ucf.ereslife.com. That is the official site for our application for not only the RA position, but all of our student staff positions for the Department of Housing. So if you want to get started maybe in a different role while you're going through the RA process, you can find all of our positions here. We're so glad that you joined us today for a Q&A session. We have a couple more. We have September 15th. It will be in person in the Neptune community in the multi-purpose room, September 15th from 4 to 5 p.m. We also have September 27th in person from 6 to 7 p.m. in the Student Union, and that will be at room 316. It is the Cape Florida Ballroom on the 3rd floor. We're also going to bring in a couple RAs on September 21st, and we will be again here live on Facebook and YouTube, and you'll have the opportunity to directly ask RAs any questions that you would like, anything specific about the role or what they're doing, or any suggestions that they would give to your application or your interview process, you can completely ask them anything you'd like about their roles, and they'll be able to give you kind of a more in the moment answer for people who are currently experiencing the RA position here with the Department of Housing and Residence Life at UCF. So those are our upcoming Q&A sessions. We hope you continue to attend them as we love to see people interacting. But without further ado, this is where the application is. We hope you have a great night, and thank you so much for joining us. Bye.